there's no better time to indulge in Australia's best coffee at Roasting Warehouse. Whether you're in Perth, Brisbane, Athens, or Melbourne, experience the perfect brew crafted with passion. Visit their flagship roastery and HQ in Airport West, where the magic happens, or drop by any of their stunning cafes for not just incredible coffee, but service and a cafe experience like no other. Celebrate this season with Roasting Warehouse.
And it's their leading goal scorer and captain, Stefan Mork.
He's got more clubs than Tiger Woods, this guy, and it's very good to have you here, Alex Gersbach.
Thanks, boys. I'm a big fan, and it's an absolute pleasure.
I played 7 games. We lost all 7, so that's 0 points. We conceded 21 goals, and we scored 0 goals. And we've lost 5-0 away against Ajax. We came off the pitch, and the three of us were sort of chatting. Said, thought we did all right today. Thought we played well.
Tell us about the MLS, because a lot of people speak about the MLS and they kind of liken it to the A-League.
Within the next 10 years, the MLS will be number 6 league in the world. And it's already not far off, I don't think. It's just like the A-League on drugs. The money that they're throwing into the league is just astronomical. Whoever values you the most, whoever wants to pay you the most money to play football, is a pretty good indicator of where you should go, if you know what I mean. Everyone always says, oh, it's not about the money, it's not about the money. Yeah, it sort of is. Like, what are we playing for? We're playing to reach the highest level and get paid as much as we can.
Hello guys, and welcome back to Football Friends with Ben and Steph. I'm Ben, and Steph is in his Leeds United kit with Harry Kewell on the back.
It's a top kit. I actually need to get a few more. I've seen you've been repping a few more kits, so I need to get onto some of these suppliers and get some sent out to me, because they are class. They are class, these kits. I just bought Orlando all 3 kits for Arsenal. So I reckon I'll do that every year of his life. And then he's got, like, I know they're not going to fit him when he's older, but it'd be pretty sick to look back on and have all the kits from every year.
Yeah, he'll never have to buy toilet paper once in his whole life.
Yeah. Talking too much shit. I can't wait. We'll smash City this weekend. You guys will lose 3-0 to Bournemouth. And then that smile will be wiped straight off your face.
Yeah, we'll see. The thing is, you're always talking in the future, and then when it comes to the future, Liverpool still haven't dropped any points, and you boys are always complaining about referee calls. So,
fucking conspiracy out against us. They're trying to get us, but you can't stop us. We will keep on coming.
When you come to Melbourne, we'll have to go and see one of the vintage jersey places here in Melbourne and get you some new kits, because they've actually got some really good ones.
Yeah, all right. Well, let's do it after we play each other. We can maybe look to do a podcast there. Maybe the day after we can do it in the store or something. But
we'll have to plan something. Actually, we'll have to plan a special podcast for that.
Yeah, exactly.
For that weekend.
But enough of us having small talk. You guys came on here for a reason, and that was not to listen to us talk dribble. You want to see the guest. You want to hear from him, and we have big Alex Gersbach, who has just signed. We're both obviously really good friends with him from the Aussie camps back in the day. I think that's like the best thing about the Aussie camps were the players that you meet, right? The connections that you have for life. Obviously different age groups, all from different parts of Australia, but under 17s, 20s, 23s, you connect with these guys, and then you might not see them again for 7 or 8 years, but you feel like you're good mates because you spend so much time literally maybe rooming with each other or just literally spending every day for weeks at a time with each other. So it's really great that he's back in the league. He's had a lot of years overseas, and I'm excited to see him play. It's been a long time, obviously, since we've actually seen him play a game of football.
Yeah, see if he's still got it, because he's someone that at the start of his career came on really, really quickly, was doing really well, went straight to the Socceroos, but then later on in his career had obviously a lot of different clubs, but also had some patches there where he was playing consistently at a very good standard, but still didn't get called back into the Socceroos. So he's obviously, and that's the strange part about football, because you're good enough to play for the national team when you're 18, 19, 20, but then not good enough when you're 26, 27. So I'm sure he is still good enough. you don't just lose it, but I suppose it's maybe the way that people see you, or maybe there just weren't as much eyes on him. Maybe actually would have done him better to be in Australia, but
Yeah.
he's back here now. He can maybe go for another late push.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I'm sure we'll talk about it in the talk, but it's kind of like back in the day, when you were breaking through as a left back, when you got transformed from a failed winger to a left back, there actually wasn't a lot of left backs in Australia back then, and nowadays there's actually quite a few. Like even just with Casey Boss, he's obviously doing extremely well. His brother Geordie Boss, and then you've got Jacob Farrell, who's over at Portsmouth. He's injured, but those three really good young fullbacks: Geordie, Courtney Perkins, and Joel King at Sydney. Two very talented left backs. Aziz Bayich is still playing, yourself. So there's actually a lot of talented fullbacks out there, where I feel like back in the day it was a position that we just didn't really have a lot of players in. So he's got competition now, but if he comes back here, that's the one good thing about Australia is you're in the shop window for the national team coach, because he's watching every game. If you do well, the media will talk about you, they'll hype you up, and he's gone to one of the biggest clubs in Western Sydney. So let's see how he goes. I think he is in the waiting room, so we'll let him in so we can actually chat to him rather than just talking about himself, right?
Let's get him in. Joining us today, we've got a good friend. He's just recently returned to Australia after spending the last 9 years abroad. He's got more clubs than Tiger Woods, this guy, but he's finally come back home to the A-League. He's just joined Western Sydney Wanderers, and it's very good to have you here, Alex Gersbach.
Thanks, boys. I'm a big fan, and it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Obviously, it's hot right now. You've just come back. You were a Sydney FC boy growing up, loved the club, and now you've just signed for their rivals. So, what happened? What's happened there?
Good question. All happened pretty quickly, but yeah, nothing came from Sydney FC, so I've got nothing to say about that. Not much.
Yeah, because they've got enough good left backs. They've got the next generation of
They've
good
got about four left
backs.
backs, so fair enough that they absolutely weren't interested.
No, that is.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of those ones, I guess, where I'm sure, if the opportunity came up, but it didn't, and I'm sure you're just happy to be back in Sydney. As we spoke about off air, you're living back at home for now. You've got your girlfriend over from America that's moved here. So how have you settled in, I guess, permanently? It's been a long time since you lived in Australia. You've only been back for, what is it, a week now?
Yeah, about a week, 10 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, settled in fine. It's a bit weird, to be honest. We were back here for Christmas for like two and a half, 3 weeks, and then went back to Sweden, and then it all sort of happened like a week after we got back to Sweden. So it's not weird being home, but it is weird like being here, not being on holiday. Having to wake up at like 6 a.m. like the rest of Sydney and go to work.
Was it in the plan when you came back?
No, I had no idea. Obviously, like, we got relegated last season, so since November, I've sort of been thinking, if anything comes up, my agent was sort of on the lookout a bit. And the A-League was probably an option, but no one was really showing too much interest to my agent. So I went back to Sweden for pre-season, for the first week of pre-season. And still not really any interest from anywhere. So I was sort of prepared to stay there for 6 months and see out my contract and play in the second division for 6 months, which wouldn't have been the worst thing. But as soon as this came up, and it was in Sydney at home, a bit of a longer contract, 2.5 years. So it sort of just made sense for everyone, for me and my girlfriend, to come to Sydney. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I guess you know what, when you set off, and we'll go into your junior years in a little bit, but I'm sure when you set off, when you were 18, 19 at Sydney FC, you signed in Rosenborg. you probably, it was a dream, I'm sure, to stay overseas for nine odd years. You're able to do that. So it's unbelievable. I think a lot of Australian players. We had James Holland on a few weeks back, and he spoke about that. One of the biggest things that he gets disappointed with is when the first move doesn't work out overseas, and then you move back to Australia. But you were able to obviously stick it out over there. You played for multiple clubs, different continents. So well done, obviously, for doing that. Me and Ben, we would have loved to have been able to do that. It didn't really work out for us that way. So firstly, we just wanted to pump your tires up and say congratulations
And
on
I would love
the
to have a
long stint
podcast with my
overseas.
mate, but like I didn't get invited to be a host, so what can you do?
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're back in Australia now, so maybe now's the time to start networking. You just need to find a friend,
Yeah.
buy a couple of microphones, have some jerseys hanging up in the back, and away you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben
Or
mentioned.
you can come on our one if you want. You can be the second best left back
I
on
mean-
our podcast if you want.
I mean, I've not heard from you two since the first episode of the podcast in 2023. But being in Australia 2 days and Steph's sending me pictures and videos of Orlando in the living room, trying to soften me up, get me on the podcast.
Yeah, you're back into a bit of relevance, and we come calling straight away.
Mum's just come home, by the way, so she'll probably come storming in a minute, wondering what's going on. Just a warning.
That's
Well,
all right. You can get her on the podcast.
Let's we like to start chronologically or try and go in the best way possible. So I suppose take us back to young Alexander growing up in Sydney. What were your grassroots? What was your grassroots journey look like, and how did you get into football?
I pretty much started playing football because my brother played football, I guess. And then we moved from Western Sydney actually over to the Shire, Cronulla area. So my first real club was Miranda Magpies. After playing for a year in Birong. I played junior football for Miranda Magpies until I was about 10, I think, and then we started playing rep football for Sutherland. And then played for Sutherland until I was 14, maybe, with a bit of, what was it, Project 22. Do you remember that? You don't know what that is?
No.
Yeah, that makes
Must have been a Sydney thing.
Well, it didn't work because there was a Football New South Wales initiative that it was geared towards the 2022 World Cup, which obviously I didn't play at. So yeah, the program didn't work. But anyway, that was Football New South Wales stuff. And then after Sutherland would have been NSWIS for a year or two, and then the AIS with you guys for a short period of time before you left. And that's about it.
So you signed directly from the AIS to Sydney then?
Yeah, technically no. The AIS program finished in March or something, and I didn't have an A-League club. So then a few of us boys that were from Sydney went to train with Sydney with the youth team. So I think the intention was to sort of have a look at me for the youth team. And then at the time, Sydney was sort of struggling with left backs. They didn't have too much going on. So I started training with the first team and in pre-season. I think it was the end of the season. And Frank Farina was there. And I think I caught his eye a little bit. I remember that I was training quite well. I'm not really sure why. I just was I was just enjoying it and in a bit of form at the right time. And then a few months later, Arnie called me and he said, I want you there on the first day of preseason. And then they used to have that rule where you had to have 3 players under the age of 20 on a first team contract. So they were handing them out, and I was lucky enough to get one. And that's
Right
it.
place, right time, eh?
Yeah. Seriously, it was a bit like...
The rest is history, really.
Yeah, it was a little bit like the right place at the right time. And then that's how I got my chance. And then, yeah, seem to take my chance. And obviously, when you're 17 and you take your chance, people get excited, and yeah, it helps.
Yeah, and it's obviously a position that, the Socceroos were lacking. And I think probably Matty Mackay was maybe involved with the Socceroos, maybe playing a little bit of left back. There was a really shit left back at Melbourne Heart at the time, another young boy by the name of
Aziz wasn't that bad.
Still hasn't got his chance.
So obviously they saw big Gers coming through, and they thought, you know what, can't get any worse than what we've got right now. So we'll give him a chance as well. But it was one of those ones. I remember when you broke through. Obviously, you started playing, and back in the league then, there wasn't a lot of young players that were playing. Like maybe off the bench every so often. Like me and Ben were kind of getting a few minutes off the bench, maybe starting a game every now and again. But around the league there was a handful of players that were under 21, I reckon. So it was a big achievement back then. Not saying it's not now, but nowadays there's more young boys than experienced players in most squads. But when you started playing, obviously, did you feel like you were up to the standard? Did you feel like you were good enough? Is that like, did you know you were always going to become a professional player, or was it kind of just something that just came really quickly at you and you didn't really have time to actually digest it all?
It all happened pretty quickly in that first season when I signed, and then I think I made my starting debut in the second round, and then it all just kept going from there. Um, but I was going to say I don't think that I don't think that I actually was that good. I think it was just that I fit in and I was so young, if you know what I mean. Not to like take anything away from it, but yeah, I sort of felt like that in my career. I felt like I don't think I ever really stood out, but I always sort of adapted to the level. And I think that's one thing that was good about the way I play. I don't know. When I was at the AIS, for example, with you guys or after you guys, I never thought I was the best player, or there were a lot more talented players than me. But I feel like I just was able to step up to the next level whenever I had to without sort of excelling,
Mm.
if that makes sense.
Yeah. Actually, it's a funny one because there's some players that look really, really good or stand out a lot at a certain level, but then if you put them up to the next level, they just can't adapt their game. Like it's almost like they're just perfect for like that certain level, whether it's, MPL or A League, and then they go like one step higher than that and they just can't handle it. Not physically or anything, it's just like the speed of the game, they're just not able to adapt.
Yeah, I completely agree. Um, yeah, there's a lot of players like that. There'd be a bunch of players you guys played with when you were younger that were unbelievable, and then they get the chance at the next level, and it's not that they're not good enough because they are good enough, but it's just like I don't know, they just feel uncomfortable and never really settle in.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
I've
It's
seen it.
just it's the way it is, and I think that's one thing, especially like I think as you get older and if you get surrounded by good mentors or other players that can help you out. That was something that the big man on the back of this, Harry Kuehl, actually said to me. One, he said, "Fuck, you're a top player, Steph. You're gonna go right to the top."
Well, he was fucking wrong about
Does he
that.
know your name?
So he fucked up with that one. But no, what he did say was your strengths need to be what you work on every day. Your weaknesses are something that it's kind of irrelevant. You just need to get really good at what your key attributes are. And if you can excel at those, obviously you can keep kind of progressing, because that's what separates you from other players, where there's some players that they're good at everything, but they're not unbelievable at anything, and they don't impact the game. They don't, you know, jump up from like a youth team, for example, to an A League and actually impact the game as much. Where other players, you'd think, well, they didn't do well at youth team, but they go into an A League environment and they're actually the perfect kind of piece of the puzzle for what the teams needed. And I guess you at that left back was perfect for what Arnie was looking for. And you spent a couple of years at Sydney before moving on and signing for Rosenborg at the age of 18. I guess that was your, the first big move for you. How did that come about? And was there any other teams that were interested? Why did you choose to go, obviously, to Norway? They're the biggest club there, but why did you choose that club? And was there anything else that was out there, other teams that were wanting to get you in?
Um, yeah, I remember in the end it was sort of between Rosenborg and Brentford. Um, so obviously I fucked up. No, but no, I think the offer at Brentford was actually better. They were in the championship at the time, but I thought that as an 18-year-old uh going from the A League to the championship uh might be a little bit too big of a step. So I decided to go to Rosenborg. And again, I was wrong, but nah, I think that I wouldn't change a thing. I went there and it was great. The first season was unbelievable. Worked out really well. Won the league 3 years in a row. The third season sort of started to go downhill, and I went on loan to Lons, and then came back. So still got the medal, but didn't contribute too much. And yeah, I wouldn't change a thing because I fell in love with Norway, with the people, the culture of the club, the city, everything about it, pretty much. So even if maybe 2 or 3 years later Brentford were in the Premier League, and who knows what would have happened, I wouldn't change a thing about my decision, and I'd probably make the same decision again now. There's a few other moments in my career where I absolutely made the wrong decision, um, but that's not one of them.
Just on that, I remember we were speaking at this time. I could have this completely wrong, but um, you obviously chose to go out on loan to Lons because you weren't playing and you wanted to kind of progress. You were still really young. Do you think maybe you jumped the gun to leave Rosenborg and not kind of just be happy with, your, 19, 20, 21 years old in a massive club, just to kind of be like, I'm excited to be a part of this, even if I'm a bit part player, rather than, I think the guy's name was Melling. Good memory by me, but it was Melling playing ahead of you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, yeah. Fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, I remember having that conversation with you as well,
Yeah.
and probably with
Yeah,
Ben
I
too.
remember that too.
Um, yeah, so I wouldn't say I regret going on loan to Lons because I went there with the aim of playing regularly to go to the World
Hmm.
Cup, um, which I did, but then Bert forgot to call me to go to the World Cup. Um, so, so in theory, it worked out well and it was great. And Lons was a great club, even bigger club than Rosenborg. Just struggling a bit at the
Did
time.
you
They're
did you not
It's pretty
did,
funny. It's pretty funny.
did you not send him like when you changed the WhatsApp number?
No,
Did
you
you not
go. Yeah, you go.
did you not give him like the new WhatsApp number once you changed countries?
I mean, yeah, I went to France and I changed my number, so Ange mustn't have passed it on to Bert.
Oh
Disaster.
well.
No, but what was I going to say before you cut me out 3 times? That shit, I was going to say something
You
important.
said it was funny,
Um,
and then Ben cut you off.
Yeah, there was something. It couldn't have been that good. It couldn't have been anything
no, it
good.
couldn't have been. It could have been. Don't worry about it.
It couldn't have been. Ben's just fucked up our
Yeah,
whole
no, don't worry about it.
conversation, and the listeners now, the 20,000
But yeah, no,
listeners.
no, no, no. So I don't regret going to Lons. I think that was a good move at the time. And I mean, in my opinion, I probably should have been picked in the World Cup squad ahead of a 35-year-old James Meredith. I don't know. That was a bit of a weird one. And then I went back to Rosenborg after that. And then it's then 6 months later. So I stayed there for 6 months, played a little bit here, and I think I played 7 games for the rest of the season. And then and then it was then that I went to Knockbreda when I could have been a little bit more patient,
Mm.
I think. And I was only like 21 maybe, and I thought like, nah, this is bullshit. I'm not starting every week. Blah blah blah. And there was another player in the same position as me, and he'd played even less than me. And I played 61 games for Rosenborg before I turned 21. Like it's not a bad thing at all. So I got a little bit pushy with my agent, and actually changed agents and then went with Vinny. and went to Nakbreda in Holland when I probably could have stayed it out in Rosenborg. I was saying there was another guy in my position, the right back. He ended up staying, and he went on loan in Norway and came back. Um, he's now the captain of the club, played over 100 games for the club. So yeah, something like that. If I had have stayed and done that, maybe it was the right decision. But also, yeah, it's easy in hindsight.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Like you don't really know, and well, nobody knows obviously what's around the corner. But also, like you're young, you're ambitious, you want to play. Sometimes that's where you actually need an agent or good people around you to kind of just like say to you, listen, just relax, like it's okay, you're in a good position, trust me. Like if you go somewhere else, it's not always saying it's going to be better. But when you're young, you just have these ambitions of wanting to play, and not that you think you're better than what you are, because you obviously proved that you can play at that level. But in hindsight, everything's an easy decision to make, and you went to Nakbreda. You were there for a couple of years. You struggled. You didn't play a lot. Why was that? Was it the coach didn't like you, or you were injured? What was kind of going on when you were there before moving to Denmark?
No, so at no, I was only there for 6 months
Oh,
actually.
really?
He's gone for a
Ben,
couple of years,
yeah,
and then I
Ben,
binned him.
Ben can do the fact checking next time. Yeah. Um, nah, so yeah, we got relegated. Uh, I came in January, and the first game was against the team coming last, um, away, and that was my debut. And how do you guys say the word debut? Debut or debut?
Debut.
You say it however you want. You're the
Debut,
guest. You're the man, bro. You can do it.
because my American missus said that when I first said that word, I said debut, and she got the ick. So just thought I'd run it by you
So
guys.
you've just given me the ick as well by saying it.
Debut. I
Yeah,
think that's what a lot of
fair
Australians would
enough.
say.
Debut.
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 Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, my first game, we've lost 3-0 against the Graafschap, and they were coming last, and we were second last. So from then, I just knew, oh fuck, we're in for a bit of a ride here.
Did you say, can I
Um,
can I actually
so
transfer
I, but I,
back?
but I kept,
I'll go straight back.
yeah. Is this a loan? Was this a loan? Um, anyway, so I was playing every week. The coach quite liked me, I think, because I wasn't playing very well, but he kept playing me. And then he got sacked, and that's when it really went downhill. Stopped playing. So I was only there for 6 months, and then I went to Denmark. I was in AGF for 2 years.
Yeah.
Um, and that was the period in my career where I really didn't play much at all. And then a few injuries, a few sort of overuse injuries, and then um, the left back there was honestly, I think he was the best player in the league. He was unbelievable, and I just didn't have a chance of playing. So probably should have left a bit earlier, but it was also COVID as well. That made it a bit difficult to
Mm.
leave. Um, I think it was the same. I remember talking to you, Ben, when you're at
Mm,
Hearts. It was the same around that time, hey?
yeah. What was that?
Uh,
What
and
was that
and we
like?
were talking about what to do and in Denmark.
No, what was that period like of not playing, injuries? Like, was that, would you say that was the most challenging part of your
Um,
career?
yeah, I think so. Yeah. Um, I mean, I've had a lot of challenging parts of my career on and off, but that was like a prolonged period of just not playing and then being injured and then COVID, obviously, which I didn't really hate that much because it was a bit of an escape from football because football was kind of quite shit at that time with injuries and stuff. So COVID was like, oh, football stopped, so you can like chill out for a sec. You don't need to worry about your injury and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, that was probably the longest period of um, challenges. Uh, and then in the end of it, I had the chance. It was only like I think it was like close to the last day of the transfer window in August 2021. So I'd been there 2 years, not playing, injured, blah blah blah, and I still was sort of struggling to get out and find a club. Um, and this French agent came to me, who is now my agent, has been for 4 or 5 years, and said, "Do you want to go to Grenoble in the French second division?" Uh, and honestly, I didn't really want to go, but I had no choice because life was pretty good in Denmark, off the field. Everything was great, so I didn't really fancy going. Um, but I went, and yeah, it turned out pretty well in the end at Grenoble.
What was obviously you've lived now like in quite a few different countries. How did you go with adjusting to moving countries so often? Obviously the different languages, the different cultures. Was it something that you really embraced, or was it something that you found quite challenging?
A little bit of both. Honestly, logistically, it's just a nightmare. But I have become pretty good at it, so it's become a lot easier. Um, and there were a couple periods where it was like a little bit hectic, like when I went on loan to France and back to Norway, then to Holland, and then to Denmark within like a year and a half or something. That was just hectic and like a little bit stupid. Um, but then going to France was probably a little bit easier because I'd done it so many times and had a 2 year rest from it. Um, and then going to America was sort of really exciting, something completely new and different. Um, and after I'd sort of done well at Grenoble, so I was signing a better contract and was really happy about that. My best mate came over and helped me pack everything up, to send all my stuff, and then which was great from him, but it all broke on the way. So so lots of lessons in sort of shipping stuff, which is a bit of a shame because this time I didn't ship much back home to Australia. And Ben knows that I've had to sell my coffee machine, unfortunately.
The beloved coffee machine's been left in Sweden.
Yeah. I mean, I was willing to play 6 more months in the Swedish third division if I had to just keep my coffee machine around.
Once,
But
once you've got it,
you
honestly,
gotta
you
do,
can't live
you
without
gotta
it.
do what you gotta do. Yeah, so I'm in the market again. If anyone's selling one, let Ben know. He's
I know
my
someone
buyer's
that's
agent.
selling one.
Yeah, I might.
Is that
I
right?
might. I might actually be selling mine. That can maybe be a discussion that we have
Are
after
you upgrading?
after the podcast.
That's unbelievable.
There we go.
Upgrading.
What
I knew
color is
you
it?
came
Is
on
it
here for
red?
a reason other than
Yeah,
football talk.
it's red like this.
Absolutely. Like what, like the Wanderers.
Nah, like Mo Salah. Well,
Anyway, it's
Oh
enough
yeah.
coffee talk, boys.
Okay, I actually can't see
So,
it.
all right then. Actually, while
Okay,
we're on
sorry,
it,
sorry.
tell the people best coffee that you experienced in those countries that you're in Europe. If you had to say the best coffee consistently, where would it have been? Obviously, Australia is number one. What?
Which country? Which
Yeah, which
country?
country or which city that you are in, where you like, fuck, the coffee here is very good. Similar culture to Australia.
Um, I need to remember where I've lived. Trondheim. No, probably not. Great people, great, great lifestyle, but they're drinking filter coffee. Um, Breda was actually quite good.
Holland's quite good. Even when I was in
Uh,
Nijmegen, it was pretty good to be honest.
yeah, yeah. I wasn't there for long. I only got to try two coffees, but yeah, really good. Uh,
that's the
um,
same amount of points you got
no,
while you were
the coffee sort of. No, if I'm being honest, I played. This is quite funny actually. We can laugh about it now. Um, I played 7 games. I started 7 games. We lost all seven, so that's 0 points. We conceded 21 goals and we scored 0 goals.
And
there.
and the
Hell,
right winger from the
So yeah,
opposition team scored
probably
all of them.
Yeah, you should have. Some of the right wingers I played against were unbelievable. Um, yeah, so I remember one game actually. This is funny. I sort of had two mates in the team. Team was a little bit toxic, and everyone sort of hated each other. I was just a young kid, just happy to be there. I had two mates in the team, one American boy and one French guy, and they were both centre backs. So we played a five back line against Ajax, and the three of us were sort of next to each other, and we've lost 5-0 away against Ajax, and we came off the pitch, and the three of us were sort of chatting. Said, I thought we did all right today. I thought we played well. And we've just lost 5-0 against Ajax, but the pitch was like unbelievable. So like you couldn't really have a bad touch. Um, and we held them out for about 30 minutes, and then my mate decided to put his hand up like that on a free kick and gave away a penalty. Um, but yeah, that just shows like the difference in level between Ajax and us. That we lost 5-0. We came off with like, I thought we did all
Played
right.
well. Who was in that team? Like, who were you playing against?
It was the Ajax team. I think it must have been 2019, start of 2019 when they had that Champions League
Oh
run.
wow.
Uh, I think they made the semi-final of the
So
Champions
they
League.
had like
It
Huck and
was
Ziyech.
Tadic, it was yeah, Ziyech, Frankie de Jong. Ziyech was actually I marked
Yeah.
him, and he actually wasn't that hard to play against because he was absolutely
And
chilling because he
then
was playing
I
against
think he
Nutt.
moved to Chelsea straight after that
So
game.
yeah. 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 They sent his agent sent the highlights off to Chelsea, and Chelsea said, "Wow,
Did you
unbelievable."
take a couple of percent though at least?
Yeah, I did. Yeah,
That's why he can
The
afford the La
bit of
Mazorca.
commission. Yeah,
I've got a question, Gers.
Ben, Steph. Okay, go on.
Sorry, I don't know. I think I'm not sure if it's lagging a little bit between
Yeah,
me
no,
and
go on.
you, but I keep cutting you off.
Maybe a little bit, tiny
Yeah,
bit.
I think it is. Tell us about the MLS because a lot of people speak about the MLS and they kind of liken it to the A League. Obviously, we're a very small version of what the MLS is. But what do you think it is that they're doing that's kind of keeping their league going from strength to strength? Obviously, a lot of people they see the similarities between the two leagues. Obviously, there's a lot more money over there, but they seem to be getting some really good crowds over there. It seems like there's a lot of buzz around the MLS. They also seem to be playing really young players now and also selling young players that are going over to Europe to top leagues. So, what do you think they're doing well? What did you notice? Because obviously, you didn't play too many games while you were over there. So, I'm sure you saw a lot of what was happening behind the
Watched a few though.
scenes.
Um, yeah. Are there any clubs that I did play at?
You played at Sydney.
Sydney FC.
Sydney FC. Yeah, right. Yeah. No, honestly, the in my opinion, I think that within the next 10 years, the MLS will be number six league in the world, just behind the top five leagues. I know there's a bit of debate about what actually is the top five, what's number six, blah blah blah. But um, behind that argument, I think the MLS will be there, and it's already not far off, I don't think. Uh, but yeah, just the MLS is it's just like the A League on drugs. It's the same sort of format and structure, but it's nothing like it. Just the money that they're throwing into the league is just astronomical. Um, just rich owners after rich owners that invest whatever they want into the club. I was at Colorado, and we were supposed to have the worst facilities in the league, but we had everything we needed, more than we needed. Um, so you can only imagine some of the other clubs that have brand new stadiums, brand new training facilities, and training centers that are world class, like Premier League standard. Um, and then obviously you've got the argument about the boutique sort of stadiums. A lot of the brand new ones in MLS are about between 20 to 25,000 seater stadiums, um, uh, owned by the club, of course. Um, so yeah, that that really helps, and the fan bases are really growing. I know, like 5, 6 years ago, we'd watch memes on the internet laughing at MLS fans and stuff like that. But honestly, it's no joke anymore. Like they're actually really good. Uh, seriously. And you're seeing players like young talents from South America going to the MLS rather than going to Europe because they can earn more money there. Um, and then if they do well there, they go to the top tier in Europe anyway. So you see MLS clubs selling players to Europe for big money, and then you also see them offering big contracts to young kids playing in Europe. Um, that is saying, well, yeah, fuck it, I might as well go and play in the MLS. Like the money's better than what I'll earn in Europe, so why not? Um, so yeah, it's just getting better and better, and then you're still attracting big name players. Like I don't know who has gone there recently. Giroud, Royce, who else? Couple big name
That Lionel
players
guy's
like
been there
that.
for a couple of years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously. Honestly, just forgot about that. That was crazy. I was there when he came, um, and I started watching Inter Miami, and I was like the biggest fan. Um, so yeah, obviously
Yeah.
that's yeah, I forgot to
Do
even
you
mention
know?
that, but that's obviously a massive
Do
part
you
of it.
know if like the clubs? I don't know if you even looked into this or whether it kind of gets disclosed, but do you know like with their profit and loss statements, like are they making money the owners, or are they losing massive money like each year, but they're just growing their license value?
It's a good question actually, because there was like a big talk in Colorado that Kroenke, who your mate
Yeah.
owns Arsenal, um, the whole story about Colorado not like operating at a profit, and all the other clubs weren't, from what I remember. Um, because I can't imagine with all the money that they're throwing into the league that they're not operating at a loss,
Mm.
most of the clubs.
Mm.
But maybe I'm wrong. So I don't really know, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I do know that I think Colorado was sort of profitable. Or the thing was like when these owners bought into the league 10 years ago or 15 years ago or even 5 years ago, the value of the club is just like multiplied tenfold.
Mm.
So that's where the value lies in it, the value of the club rather than net profit or
Yeah.
loss or operating whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense. I think it's so hard to understand. Obviously, there's a lot more people in America, and there's a lot more billionaires, millionaires, people that obviously want to invest the money. But I feel as if we do have enough wealthy people in Australia. It's just somehow getting them attracted to the game here to want to put in that money. Because, like you said, if you had like Bill Foley, for example, who owns Auckland, he's an American. He owns the Las Vegas hockey team, and he owns Premier League Bournemouth. He owns, what is it, Hibs. So he owns a few other sporting teams, but he doesn't own an MLS team. If you had 10 of him that came into the A League now, that would boost the standard of the league by so much, because you have an owner that's happy to lose 3, 4, 5, 10 million, whatever it is, to keep growing it. Where it seems as if we've got owners that have for some reason bought clubs and they don't actually want to lose money. They want to break even, or they want to try and make money, which is impossible to do when you're in a climate where our TV rights deal is getting lower. So it's not easy to replicate what they've done in America. But getting back onto obviously your journey, before we go into your last stint in Sweden with Kalmar, you spoke about earlier that you did make a couple of wrong decisions that you wish you could kind of go back on. And we have a lot of young listeners, I'm sure young footballers aspiring to get to the position that you've been able to do. What advice would you give them about those decisions? Was it, you went for the money, or you chose to go to a certain club because you believed in an agent? What were some of those wrong decisions, and what would you have done instead?
Yeah, it's a good question. I Yeah, the one that I was talking about was I told you I don't regret going to Rosenborg, even though the money wasn't. It's gonna sort of contradict what I'm about to say, but even though the money wasn't as good, I decided to go there and I didn't regret it. But then later on, I when I went to Nackbreda, for example, I had the option to go to. This is more of a hindsight thing, but I had the option to go to Paderborn in the second Bundesliga for slightly better money. Again, nothing major. Um, and I went to Nackbreda, got relegated from the Eredivisie, and Paderborn got promoted to the Bundesliga. So like within 6 months. So it's like, what can you do? That's just like it was. If you look back, it's a bad decision,
Yeah.
right? Getting relegated from the Dutch league as opposed to getting promoted to the German Bundesliga. But who would have known at the time? And then after that, I don't know. But the advice that I would give is that people tell you, especially in Australia, when you're doing well and you're a young talent and you're thinking about going to Europe or whatever. My advice would be like whoever values you the most, whoever wants to pay you the most money to play football is a pretty good indicator of where you should go, if you know what I
Mm.
mean. Um, in obviously you need to take into account other things, but um, yeah, like if you I don't know, it's hard to know what's gonna happen. You don't know. So I mean, an easy way to think about it is to take the best offer on the table. Um, and there are other decisions you have to make, like, oh, maybe I should stay here for a bit. Um, but yeah, obviously, if it's you earn $1 more in Saudi Arabia as opposed to Germany, you go to Germany. But yeah, I think that's something that I would have liked to have heard a little bit earlier in my career because everyone always says, "Oh, it's not about the money. It's not about the money." Like, yeah, it sort of is. Like, what are we playing for? We're playing to reach the highest level and get paid as much as we can. Um, so while being sensible about it, if one club is willing to pay you more than another club, then they value you more
Mm.
as a player, as a professional. So yeah, I not so much don't take that advice from me, but don't always listen to the advice. Oh, it's not about the money, it's about your career, your career. Suddenly I'm 27 and like, you know what I mean? You can't say that forever,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
No, you're right. You're
Yeah.
right. That is right. To be honest, if clubs are
Yeah.
willing to invest, and obviously you can't sometimes compare
Yeah.
apples for apples because a Premier League club is going to be able to spend a lot more money than a club in a smaller league. But if a club in a smaller league is sticking their neck out and saying, "Fuck, this is the biggest contract we've ever offered anyone," then that's a pretty good indication that they
Yeah.
really do want you, and you're a considerable investment for them. So there's a good chance that you go there and you're going to have a good chance to play. That's just the way it works at the end of the day. You know, last time I went back to Melbourne City, they said that they didn't have any money. I signed a shit contract. I ended up not playing. Now, that's not because the money that I didn't play well either. I didn't deserve to play, but it makes it a lot easier when someone offers you a big contract. You're coming there, they're going to say, "Fuck, we're giving this guy big money. We got to give him at least a few games to find form or whatever because we've invested a lot. We're going to look like fucking idiots if we don't give this guy a chance."
Yeah, 100%. Definitely agree with that.
Yeah. No, I think it's so easy, and like you look at like a Trent Sainsbury, for example. He was probably the first one that really he jumped at the chance to take the money when he moved to China at a younger age, and look at how his career still panned out. He ended up going on loan to Inter Milan because the same team that he went to was owned obviously by the same owners, and then he went back to Europe after that, and he was still involved in the Socceroos. So obviously you don't just chase the money; you have to think about it as a footballing decision as well. But like we have such a short career, it's impossible to always know what the right move is, and sometimes if you do get a really good offer or you get the opportunity to earn more money, it might not ever come up again. So if you want to turn it down because you think I'll go later, that opportunity maybe doesn't come because football changes so quickly where 1 minute, you're the next biggest thing coming through, and then the next minute you're 27, 28 years old, and your career's kind of gone before your eyes. And not saying that your career has been poor at all. Like, I think a lot of players would love to have had the career that you've had. um,
What are you talking about?
but it's one of those ones where things can change so quickly, and you make one decision. Like, you chose to leave Grenoble in League Two, obviously in France, to go to the MLS, and it didn't work out there. But I'm sure you've met your now girlfriend, and now you've ended up back in Australia. So I try and look at it that everything happens for a reason. You went there and you learnt a lot, I'm sure, from it. You ended up going to Kalmar after the MLS. So why did you leave the MLS, and why did you choose to go to Sweden?
Pretty simple actually. I don't know if we actually talked about this ourselves. Um, I think we did, but anyway, so I went to Colorado. Uh, Obviously they bought me from Grenoble. Um, they invested quite a bit of money in me. So I went there as a first choice left back. Um, Played the first game of the season in Seattle. Lost 4-0. Bit of a theme in my career actually. And was dropped was dropped for the second game. Came back in the third game, back in the starting lineup. Tore my hamstring. Then was out for a few weeks, and then came back, and just coach wasn't having me at all. We had a really bad start to the season. We were really struggling. And then I just didn't play. Um, and then I started having groin problems. And I'd had them for a little bit, and I thought, well, I'm not playing, and my groin's getting a bit worse, so I might as well try and fix it now. So I had surgery halfway through the season, and then uh, came back and came back the next season in preseason and sort of said, yeah, I want to stay. Like, I'm happy here off the field. I've got a 3-year contract. I want to prove myself to the new coach. So I stayed for preseason and got fit, got over the groin stuff, and then 3 days before the start of the season, I got waived by the club, and most of the listeners probably have no idea what that means, um, unless you're an American sports fan. But pretty much they deregistered me because I'm not sure of the actual reason, but I was told that they needed space in the cap, or that they needed the international roster spot. Um, so yeah, that happened just a few days before the season, which was a massive stitch up because all of the transfer windows were closed. So I couldn't go anywhere. So they when you get waived, they had to continue paying me, and I had 2 years left on my contract. So we negotiated, and then I the only window that was open was the Swedish and the Norwegian and maybe the Polish window. I couldn't even come back to Australia. I would have had to wait 6 months, which um if you ask my girlfriend, probably would have been a really bad idea, because I think it had been like 2 weeks and I was like really bored and just
So you couldn't even train
going a
with
bit
him?
crazy. So and that No, so that was the first time in my career that I'd actually been a free agent. Um, but it was only for a few weeks, luckily. Uh, and then, yeah, Kalmar came in, and they said, look, we don't have any money, but do you want to come and play here? Um, so I said, yeah, I don't really have a choice, but I'll do it. And yeah, it honestly, probably individually, it worked out well for me because I played not quite a full season. I had a few hamstring problems. But I played 20 games for Kalmar, got over. The year before, I played 5 games and was injured half the year. So when you have a bit of perspective and the next season you play 20 games, you're kind of grateful for
Mm.
that. Um, So yeah, from now back at Western Sydney, hopefully I can notch up more than 20 games in a calendar year
Who are you guys playing this
and
week?
get back to Brisbane away.
So I'm gonna go and lump massive money on Brisbane then, all right?
4 or 5 nil, surely.
Fucking hell.
Um,
That it's actually crazy how that's happened a few times, but that's like where football, when you think about it, football's all about moments and literally just a little bit of luck. Me and Ben speak about this all the time, like,
yeah,
and it's being in the right place, the right time. Like a lot of people would probably look at you and think, "Fucking hell, with this Gersbach, he's had such a good career. He's been so lucky. He's got all these moves." But like, also, then you're probably looking at it and thinking, "Well, there's other people that have had a fucking much better career than me." And like, if I came in and started this first game in the
mm,
MLS and we won 3-0, I keep my spot. I play the second game, the third game, and then
yeah,
who knows what can happen, but things change so quickly the other way, and sometimes it is out of your control. Um, but it's incredible how those small little moments in you go to a new team, if you start well, you play a good game and you win. It's completely different to if you play average and lose 3 or 4 nil, even though the result probably had nothing to do with you individually.
yeah. Um, Obviously, in a team sport, people don't realize, but like, it's not that easy to perform in a losing team that's not doing too well. And I've found myself on the end of a losing team a few times in my career. And then on the other hand, um, when I was at Sydney, the team was doing well. I go to Rosenborg, the team's doing well, so it's easy to sort of slot in. And then you're playing for the best team in Norway at 18, and things sort of seem easy and everything's going great. And then you're in a relegation battle, and then yeah, sort of a lot of ups and downs, but yeah, it's not easy, and there's a lot of different factors that people don't think about. Um, but at the end of it, all you sort of get what you deserve, what you put in, and your performances and your work ethic and stuff like that.
Yeah. I think the main thing is like, and it's so, underrated, but having a coach that really backs you, and we speak about this so many times, we've spoken about this with a lot of guests, but, you've got a coach that maybe, all right, you're in a shit team, whatever, it's maybe your first game in a new country and you don't play that well, and the coach just bins you straight away. Instead of actually, if you've got a coach that really maybe stuck his neck out to get you at the club, they go, you know what, I'm going to give this guy, 5, 6, 7 games to at least find his feet. If after that you still don't perform, then you go, all right, you know what, hold my hand up, I wasn't good enough. But, if you get a little bit unlucky with a coach like that as well, that can also have a big effect on the career path.
Yeah, definitely. I've always said, um, you can believe in yourself as much as you want, but at the end of the day, if someone else doesn't believe in you, you're fucked because you're not picking the team yourself. Um, so you need to keep that, like, have that resilience and self-belief and confidence and really believe in yourself. But you also need a bit of help along the way. Otherwise, you can't. There's not really so much you can do about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I've not really had that many coaches in my career that really believed in me. Um, and then the couple that do, it helps dramatically and it pushes you to the next level. Um, and confidence in football is, I don't know, 80% of the game. So yeah, if you've got that faith from a coach, it helps everything. Obviously, you need to have that self-belief always, no matter what, um, to an extent, to a realistic level, obviously. Um, but yeah, you gotta have a coach behind you that believes in you.
Yeah, I feel as if that's probably the one area in Australia that we've failed to prepare players for because we don't have a massive talent pool of players. So if you're a young player coming up the ranks, you're always so much better than the players around you. Or there's maybe 10 of you, 15 of you in that age group, but you're so much better than the other one. So you're always one of the best. Where over in Europe, I'm sure even in America, with the population, like they're constantly South America. We spoke about it with Fornaroli, like he's constantly getting challenged because there's new kids coming through trying to take his spot. So they're kind of getting conditioned into this. And then you make the A-League and it's the same thing. There's not massive squads and you're not kind of... There's young players and then there's the boys that are starting. And normally a bit of a difference where overseas in Europe, you might have 25 players, but you're all pretty even. So you might play, you might not play, but there's not a big difference. And they're used to that, where we do struggle, I think, with that side of it. And how you improve that, I'm not 100% sure on. But it's an area of the game, I think, that, have that resilience to keep, like you said, keep believing in yourself is the most important. And then you just got to get fortunate to find that right coach, and fingers crossed for you. Obviously, it works out well at Western Sydney. Obviously, you're returning home, but before we wrap up the show, I guess I'm curious, like, over those 8-9 years, what are some of the big, like, takeaways, the couple things that you look back on as your biggest highlights, and the things that you think, like, maybe it wasn't the best moment, but I learned a lot about myself in that time.
The highlights probably came pretty early in my career in Rosenborg and in Norway. And at the same time, I was playing for the Socceroos. Um, so those were pretty big highlights. And then one other moment that was a big sort of turning point for me mentally was in France, where things weren't going so well, and then uh, I sort of turned it around, and we survived relegation actually. My first year at Grenoble, uh, and I was on the pitch a lot, injury free, so that was really good. And so that was a bit of a highlight, surviving relegation. And then I played the first few months of the season, and then got sold to Colorado. Um, and then the lowlights probably, yeah, on the field in Denmark. Um, some tough times in Norway as well, in at Rosenborg at the end, when I was, as we talked about before, when I was a little bit impatient maybe, and then injuries in America. But the older you get, um, I don't know, the easier it is to deal with those setbacks. You've been through stuff before, so you can get through it again, and you also don't let it affect you mentally as much as when you're younger. Um, so yeah, for young guys, I'd probably just advice would be try to work on the mental side of the game, as early as you can, as young as you can, um, because that'll really help a lot. First of all, it'll help physically, and then it'll help. We're not just footballers, We've got lives outside of football. We're real people. Um, it's not your whole identity being a footballer. So don't let that don't let what's happening in your career affect your life outside of football, and your happiness and your mental state. I know you're a big advocate for that, Steph.
So pretty much just buying in the games
So
early.
yeah,
Is that what you
the
just said?
earlier that's exactly what I was saying. That's what I've been saying all along. Um, no, 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 but seriously, it was actually when I was in Denmark that I like learnt the most about
Yeah.
myself and my mentality and my mental health, and that's actually when I was journaling with the Inner Game Journal.
Yeah, it's
I'll take 5% of any sales from now.
they're out of stock right now, but it's one of those
Yeah,
times, to be
right, fair
honest,
enough.
like, it does happen when you're at your lowest moment. Like, for me, it was when I was up in Brisbane and I was injured for the whole year with OP then as well. And that's actually the moment you're the lowest you can as a footballer, so you have to start to look somewhere else, because fuck, football's not working out, obviously. And that's when you learn the most about yourself. And I think sometimes having those really dark moments or those tough times actually help your career. They help you progress, and they help you kind of, when you come back from that, kind of realize, well, what does work for me. And it's something for me that is such a big disappointment, that all NPL clubs, nobody really looks at this stuff. A lot of A-League academies, even, a lot of A-League professional teams now, they don't work on this side of the game. They don't work on the individual players' mindset, their mentality. But for me, if you get the
Yeah.
individual to play at 100% of their capability, that's 90% of your job. And by working on that side of the game with them, they're gonna run more. They're gonna be technically better because they're gonna believe in themselves, and it's something that it's costs money. Obviously, I understand that, but I still think there's such an untapped market for that in a lot of A League clubs. And um, now you get older as a player, you realize we know what we individually need. Of course, we know that, but a lot of the younger players, they
Mm.
don't know that, and they need to go through these struggles themselves. So yeah, it's such an important part of the game. I think every guest, it somehow leads up to this, don't you think, Ben? Where we end up talking about this, whether it's
Yeah.
halfway through, at the end, in the middle, whatever it is, it comes back to this where they've struggled, and a lot of players talk about how much they've struggled.
100%. I really agree with that. I think you hit the nail on the head. Um, I don't think there's a problem with producing technical players in Australia at the moment. Like, I've come back, and the difference between now and 10 years ago is dramatic. There's some really good young players at Western Sydney. Um, Technically unbelievable, 10 times better than I am. Just really, really tidy, solid players. But I think something that the young guys in Australia have to work on is their mentality, and dealing with setbacks, and I don't know, self confidence and self belief, stuff like that. I'm a big advocate for having. I know the PFA does a lot of work with stuff like this, but I think every professional football club should have a psychologist, because the main job of staff at a football club is to get the best out of your players.
Mm.
And we invest all this money in physios and nutrition and fucking everything. I don't know. And we don't invest in our brain and like mental health.
Mm.
Not in terms of performance. I'm talking about
Yeah.
performance. In terms of confidence and self-belief and all the rest of it.
Yeah. No, it's. I agree. Like, I think if you see it, if you came and watched, if a sports psychologist was sitting there on the sidelines, and they could also educate the coaches and the leaders in the team to kind of pick up cues on
Yeah,
certain
100%,
players, and
100%.
they could say, listen, I can tell, for example, when Gers does a mistake, he puts his head down, or he does this and he goes hiding, or whatever it
Yeah,
is.
yeah,
So when he makes a mistake, don't get angry at him, because that makes him go into his shell more. Where, another player, Borello, for example, when he makes a mistake, he fucking runs around harder. So you need to actually get on him, because that's what he likes. And then
yeah,
they can find out all these little cues, because that's their
100%.
profession, obviously. So yeah,
Yeah,
I think the club that ends up investing the most into that will probably reap the rewards. But I don't think we have
yeah,
much longer, because I'm about to fall asleep. I'm normally
yeah.
asleep
Sorry, I've
by
been
fucking
absolutely
8:30.
yapping.
So
I haven't had dinner yet. Fucking hell.
Well, we'll let you
I
go.
got I got to wake up at 5 o'clock to drive out to training.
We won't keep you any longer because you've been very generous with your time. We wish you all the best for this next chapter. Hopefully, it's a very successful one as we kind of are all entering our senior years now. Gone are the days of being young boys. So hopefully, it's a successful stint here for you. Hopefully, Stadge has been listening to the podcast and puts a lot of belief in you so that you can play very well for the Wanderers.
Hopefully, hopefully he's not listening, because all I've been talking about is getting beaten 4 or 5 nil. So
Ruben
Well,
Zadkovich is going to play
we'll
this in the
see.
change rooms before the game.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh shit.
But
But
no,
no,
thank
thanks.
you. Thanks for
Nah,
coming
good
on, brother.
times.
It's always good to have a chat with you, and yeah, happy to have you back in Australia. It'll be good to catch up when we play next.
Thanks for having me on. I've been thinking about it since one day in Denver, Colorado, where I was driving home listening to the first pod. Um, been thinking about it. And now that the pod's done, now that I've been on, you don't have to delete my numbers.
We got it. We got it.
You can
Don't worry, Bert. Don't worry, Bert Van
you can
Marley.
still text me. All right.
Thanks very much.
Thanks,
Take it
brother.
easy, guys. Thanks.
And another top chat from Big Gers. For anyone that obviously doesn't really know him, he's a very funny guy, and we felt like sometimes we were just talking like we were on a phone call rather than a podcast.
Yeah.
But he's a very funny guy, and it was interesting to hear about his story. We've kind of spoken on and off for the last 8 years, always had these conversations, but to hear it all out there. It was a tough journey, wasn't it? Like, you're moving clubs a lot, but at the same time, he's done so well to consistently keep getting clubs overseas because, myself and you as well, when we couldn't stay or we didn't want to stay at the team we were at, we didn't have other options like him. So it's great that he was able to stick it out. Obviously, he had a lot of ups, a lot of downs, but that's really the footballer's journey. Unless you're Messi or Ronaldo, I think there's just a lot of downs in this career, isn't there?
Yeah, I think for him, it's probably the frustrating part is like the injuries that really just keep you out and make it hard for you to, have that good period where you can just play consistently and start to find some really good form. And I think when he had it, it was really, really good. And obviously you can see the quality that he's got because even after all the injuries, the ups and downs, he gets that period where he's playing at Grenoble and then ends up getting bought by Colorado. Like, if you're a shit player, you're not getting bought. So he's obviously always been good enough. It's just frustrating, those periods there of injuries or coaches not liking you. But then also when you're over there, it's a different world. It's a dog-eat-dog world, and, they don't give a fuck who you are. If a coach doesn't like you, they just bin you off to the side. And
Yeah.
he experienced, the highs and the lows, but he's back here in Australia now. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to watching him and seeing how he goes now in the A-League.
I think that's the hardest thing and what people don't see is the day to day. They just see the match day, or they look at FootMob or LiveScore or whatever app they use to kind of see if a player's played and if they scored or assisted or got a good rating. That's kind of what they're like, oh, they're doing all right. But they don't see every day in training. They don't see when you're not in the squad, when you go and do the extra sessions the day after the game, or you're playing with the second team and you're kind of just thinking, fucking hell, what am I doing? Like, I'm halfway across the world playing in the second team against these young kids under 18s or whatever it is, and you're like, what am I doing? It's so tough in those moments, but those are the moments that if you can push through, things eventually come your way and things start to turn. And he was obviously able to do that a lot of times in his career because he spoke about those tough times. But as we said, it all happens. Everything happens for a reason. Every move, every setback, every positive thing, and you just got to take it in your stride. And now he's back here at West Sydney. So it was great to chat to him. I'm sure it will be a good watch to see him when he does start playing for them. They've got to turn around their form pretty quickly because they're struggling and they're a big club and he's a big recruitment for them. So let's see what other players are brought in this window, and if any players do leave between now and the end. It's always exciting. It's great to see young players getting the opportunity, and I'm sure there's always going to be a few little surprises here or there because that's really what the transfer window pulls up.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm sure there'll be a little bit more movement. Obviously, we've got so many young players, and there's a lot that have been playing consistently now for, not just this season, but also last season. So there's plenty that are raising eyebrows. So we'll see what ends up happening. Obviously, there's another round of games this week. They really are coming thick and fast now. So the season is starting to take shape. We're getting into the pointy end. Not too many games now to go. Just, you get to this stage of the season. It actually starts going really quickly.
Yeah, no, exactly. And we kick off with Brisbane Roar against the Wanderers, and then we have a Super Saturday with 4 games in a row: Auckland, Macarthur, Sydney v Adelaide United, the Mariners v the Jets with the F3 derby, and then Perth Glory against Melbourne Victory. So a lot of games on the Saturday for you. So if you're not sure what to do this weekend on Saturday, we've got it sorted for you. So make sure you tune into those games. And if you can, tell your mates about them, get them over, because the quality in this league has actually been ridiculous lately. Like the last minute winners, the rivalries between certain teams, the individual goals. It's probably been the most exciting season in a long time, I think, and the quality is so high. I don't know why that is. but it is. And as much as people want to maybe hammer the A-League with some decisions that are made, they can't fault the quality because it's been there on show. And your boy Botic banging in goals from 30 yards out, and it's a top league. You need to support it, and thanks very much for listening in.
Thank you very much, guys. We'll see you after the weekend. I have my feet up watching you play, Steph. All the best for your game. Hopefully you boys can get another win. It's going to be a massive one against Sydney, but get down to as many games as you can. Watch on telly, guys, if you can. We'll be here to chat on Monday about all the games, so we'll see you guys then. Thank you very much for listening in.